There we go. Welcome. And thank you for joining us today on the Heroes and Icons podcast. I'm your host, Greg Randolph. Please find me on Instagram and on Threads at Heroes and Icons podcast to get updates for great shows like this and others. If you're feeling generous, please rate the podcast with 5 stars, follow and share the show for me. I would greatly appreciate you for doing that. We have a rock star guest today. If you are a fan of elevating yourself, you're on the right frequency. My guest is an internationally renowned personal development coach, and his new book, The Reinvention Formula, How to Unlock a Bulletproof Mindset to Upgrade Your Life, is set to release next month on August the 15th with Wiley Books. He is a future New York Times #1 best-selling author, and he is also a sold-out stadium keynote speaker. He mentions his own podcast guests as being juggernauts in all facets of life, but he's really just talking about himself. After achieving success with multiple businesses on Wall Street, he created his own brand, CLS, in just 2 short years. The iconic Ed Milet has mentioned him as being, quote, the future of personal development, unquote. But respectfully, Craig isn't just a rising star. He already is one. He is an absolute animal and a straight fire catalyst, making a dynamic impact in the lives of all who encounter him. You can find him on the CLS Experience podcast, wherever you get your podcast. Without any further ado, of course, I'm speaking about my own ambassador of Quan, the original podcast accelerator, my brother, the brilliant, bodacious, and multi-talented stud muffin, the handsome-hearted, and wait for it, the James Bond of Wall Street, Craig Siegel. How you doing today, my man?
Oh my goodness. Hands down, the greatest, most thoughtful, most effort included introduction I've ever received in my entire life. Thank you, brother. I receive all of that. I know what it takes to put together and cultivate a custom intro. So thank you so much. I receive it. There's no place in the world I'd rather be. You know how much I love and respect you. Let's have some fun. Let's get nuts.
No, absolutely, man. Well, as you like to say, it's your story. You did it. I just said it.
Wow. That feels kind of surreal.
Right.
Being on the other end of that, honestly.
Right. I'm sure that it is. I'm sure that it is. Well, man, I love to hear that. So let me start with a couple of fun tidbits for the audience, and then we'll dive right in. So good.
Absolutely.
Good. So it's well known to your audience that you're a big wrestling fan. Mm-hmm. So if you could be any wrestler, who would that be, and what would your signature move be?
Wow. So I always like to carve out my own path. I'm unique, strange, and weird. Right. So I would want to be the first Craig Siegel. I wouldn't want to be anybody else. But if I had to choose, if you're like, well, Craig, who's your favorite wrestler?
Right.
It's interesting because different generations. When I was growing up, I was a Bret the Hitman Hart fan. Execution. But then it's like Hulk Hogan really transcended the industry. Right. And then a little bit further after that was like Stone Cold, The Rock, Triple H. Love those cats as well. Mm-hmm. But I think Ric Flair or Hulk Hogan, right? Those cats I really gravitated towards because of their skills on the mic, and their nuggets. And I just love that. They were so charismatic and entertaining. So those were the cats that I would like to emulate, so to speak. In regards to the finishing maneuver, wow, that's a tough one.
Is it like a half Nelson or a sleeper hold or something like that?
No, it would be something significantly more devistating. Okay. Maybe something off the top rope, like a frog splash. No, that's been taken. To be honest with you, I would have to create my own. It would have to be something that nobody's ever seen, and I would really have to put thought into it.
Okay, excellent. Well, good deal. Yeah, I go a long way back with wrestling, like to the Von Erich brothers and the Junkyard Dog and the Iron Sheik, Mr. Wonderful, Paul Orndorff, all those cats.
I'm familiar with all of them.
Nice. So it's a bit lesser known that you're also a big movie nerd. So from the Rocky franchise, what attributes of Rocky do you see in yourself and your personal story?
Oh man, great one. A word that comes to mind, brother: grit. Right. Grit and determination and persistence and resilience. And one thing that really stood out to me about the Rocky story, and it's probably a formula that's used in many heroes' journeys and stories, but Rocky did it better than anyone. Right. And that's just like the everyman, so to speak. Like nothing about Rocky's character stood out. Like, he wasn't super tall. He started later with boxing. He got a great opportunity. And he just was able to really capitalize on that. And his mindset is second to none. And he could take a punch and keep on going. So it would just have, I'm a sucker for the underdog story.
Yeah.
I just am. And I love when someone average, so to speak, does something extraordinary. And that's what I like to showcase to the world with CLS and so forth. So yeah, all of those traits, but one specifically that I really gravitate towards, brother, is gritty.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And someone taking their shot as well.
That's it. Yes, 100%.
Yep.
Are you a Rocky fan?
Oh, big time. Big time. Right? Yeah. I think the first 3 were actually made before you were even born.
I believe it. Probably the 4th one too.
I don't know when the 4th one was, but the first one was in 76, and the second one was in about 78, and the third one was in 83. So
the
right
4th one, I just pulled it up because I wanted to be real, raw, and authentic, and it came out the same year I was born, 1985.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like it. It. Good stuff, man. So you're guy, I could talk movies all day. I have to go with The Godfather for being number 1 on the list, but that's another discussion.
Understood.
So you're also a huge fan of watching live sports. What is your favorite sport to watch in person, and what is it about sports that particularly captivates you?
My favorite sport to watch in person, I would say probably the NBA. I go to the Knicks games in Madison Square Garden just because like they put on a show with the dancers and they do some things and it's just a fun experience. Believe it or not, football is probably my favorite sport to watch. But ironically enough, I don't like going to the games that much because depending upon where you sit, it's a big field. It's hard to get a great seat. I also, I'm a football nerd. I love to do fantasy football and that stuff. So nothing's more fun than a Sunday when you're on the couch and you get to watch all the games. So I would say NBA would be my favorite to attend. And what I love about sports is just, I got it from my pops. My dad, I mean, to this day, I spoke to him this afternoon in between meetings, and he was going nuts about the home run derby tonight. He's like, Craig, you got to watch. And he's telling me about this player on the Mets that, won twice, the first baseman, and he's going for it again. And he's talking to me about Mookie Betts. He was not really a home run hitter, but he's on fire with the Dodgers. Sports is so exciting, and underdog stories and greatness and what makes a team win and the camaraderie. I don't know. I just feel like everybody should love sports. It's just like, it's the best soap opera there is, except it's not a soap opera. It's real. Right. And, my teams have been challenged over the course of my lifetime. I haven't participated in many championships. I don't know. Sports is just a beautiful thing. And when you could really get behind a team and they have a good culture and organization and back to that word, if they're gritty and so forth, or if they get a player that you like, it's just exciting. I think everybody should be open to liking sports. Obviously find the one that you love, but what's not to like about sports, honestly?
No, absolutely. There are a lot of great components in there. There are a lot of great things about organizations and what they do for communities and how they bring everyone together, and a lot of great things there.
Yeah, that's the thing really, is it brings everybody together. You nailed it. Like think about like a city, like you can get people that don't like each other, whatever the case may be, or do totally different things, don't have much commonalities, but then all of a sudden their team's in the playoffs, right? And it's like they're high-fiving each other. It's exciting. It brings people together. You nailed it. You absolutely.
Yeah, and then everybody's friends at the water cooler at work, and hey, hey, the game last night, and whatever.
That's it.
Hey, did you get tickets? All that stuff.
Hell yeah.
So you've competed in and you've finished several marathons now. Can you take us back a few years and tell us how you began running, and then how you built your own phenomenal brand, CLS, and then as a result of your newfound infatuation with running?
Yeah. So I know you're on the launch team for the group, and we're reading the book before it comes out. And I was talking about this last week, and I got pretty emotional because for me, from Wall Street, where it started to get pretty dark towards the end of that season of life, I just wasn't having any fun. And a couple of things happened all at once. And although I was making money and stuff like that, it just, I knew I was here for something bigger. And Wall Street and stuff like that, for anyone that's experienced it probably knows, it's like a little bit of an icky industry. And it's a lot of fun until it's not. And so I found myself in the dark season. My dog's going nuts. I have to apologize.
No.
But it's raw and it's authentic. Whiskey, calm down. My bad about that.
No.
So, Whiskey, calm down. Come here. I was just thinking too. It's funny. I was like, wow, he's starting to calm down a little bit, and he's getting significantly more behaved. Literally, I was thinking that, and then he starts barking like an owl. Whiskey, please calm down. Whiskey. So, in regards to running, at a season of life when I was really looking for a purpose, I needed a purpose, Greg, because I didn't love what I was doing for a career, and you should absolutely love what you do for a career. You're going to spend a third of your life in it. For me, I don't know if I found running or running found me, but when I found that I'd never been a runner, I was a weightlifter, and I started running all these marathons. And I'm romantic. Even right now, I'm emotional as I think about running. It's just so beautiful. It's you versus you. There's no competition. It's just you, God, and the pavement. And for the listeners, like, if you're not going to run a marathon, that's okay. But I highly encourage you to experience one, even as a spectator.
Right.
It's just, we were talking about sports, everybody together, the human spirit on fire.
Yeah.
Running gave me purpose at a time when I was looking for purpose. In between CLS and Wall Street, there was this running season. And when you sign up for a marathon, you reverse engineer it. And it's like, who do you have to become to be able to conquer 26.2 miles? Here are some characteristics: healthier, better quality human being, going to bed a little bit earlier, waking up a little bit earlier, cutting out the booze, stuff like that. And so I just found myself. And it was that season that really created a new sense of Craig that was available to figure out CLS, so to speak. And ironically enough, for the first time, I'll publicly say this on your show, I just up for another marathon, in the New York City Marathon, my favorite one, in November. And the reason I did that, because people ask me all the time, like, do you have nothing to prove? Like, you just ran a 3:31 in Chicago. You're building a career. You're engaged. It's true. But success is not dominating in just one area. Right. And I know that because I was making money, but I was miserable. So I wasn't successful. But you should absolutely have career goals, relationship goals, fitness goals, all the things. And I had noticed recently, Greg, as I'm going 100 miles an hour with CLS and the brand is exploding, that my fitness routine has got a bit complacent. And so just to hold myself really accountable, I signed up for the New York City Marathon in November. And now it's like, all right, now we know I get to start a training camp for 3 months leading into that. And it's fun, it's exciting, and it's a new goal. And so there's just something so special to me about running. For everyone listening, I encourage you to find whatever your outlet is. Maybe it's sewing, maybe it's gardening, whatever it is. But something aside from just the day-to-day work stuff that gives you an extra kind of arena to be a gladiator in. And for me, that was running. And it came to me at a time when I was desperately searching for something.
Excellent. Well, let me ask you about this. So as with anything, the importance of feeding yourself with the proper mental and physical fuel can't be understated. So can you talk about your friends at Nutrition Solutions and how critical they were to your efforts in getting you geared up and fueled up for your marathon?
Yeah, so I was utilizing Nutrition Solutions because couple of years back, I wanted to just get organized, and I got on a meal prep, and I started running around the same time. And it occurred to me, like, just like anything in life, you want to be intentional, you want to be methodical, you want to be playing chess. And so I don't want to think anymore. I didn't know, I wasn't so educated with nutrition because I never put in the time to be, if I'm being honest. So by delegating and having a meal prep company, they just send me my meals, and it's a lifestyle over there. And so I don't have to think. Every 3 hours, I warm up a meal and I eat that, and it's the perfect macros and nutrients, and it just keeps me in tip-top shape. And so that's really good for me. And I would actually suggest to everybody to have a plan when it comes to nutrition. And it's interesting because for me now, fitness is probably 99% for the mental component, not the physical. Whereas back in the day when I was a bit more immature, I obviously wanted to look good and stuff like that. And just to be clear, we should all still want to look good naked and all that stuff. But I had worked out for 15 years, but did not focus on my nutrition. And I was just stocky. I was never really cut up. And when I started organizing my nutrition and being disciplined with that, I became shredded in the best shape of my life. So it just goes to show you there's a saying, like, abs are made in the kitchen, or your physique is like 90% nutrition. It really is. So for anyone that wants to look better, I would highly suggest getting organized with your nutrition. But more importantly, if you want to feel better, like you are what you eat. You can't eat like crap and feel great. You just can't.
Right.
So for me, it helped me get organized, and also it comes with a little bit of a discipline, right? Because eating super healthy is not the most exciting thing all the time, but are you interested or are you committed? So there's only benefits to eating healthy and being organized.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, absolutely. So how critical, so so still on marathons, how critical is your preparation, and so my question here is, what is your mindset as you're battling your way to the finish line, and how do you mentally push through those hurdles?
Yeah, so it's challenging, right? And the voice that will come in your head around mile 18, it's evil, it's demonic, but it's also a symbol for life, right? Because spoiler alert, we will experience adversity, challenges. It'll feel like we can't get out of this. It's a dark season, whatever the case may be. But then you persevere, right? And you choose to not be available to the opponent in your head. Or perhaps you hear the opponent, but you practice the greatest superpower there is, resistance, and you don't give in, and you keep going, and you realize you didn't die. And if you could do that, what else can you do? And you push through and you overcome. And so to get past 26.2 miles at a fast pace, it is not easy, right? But once you do it and you prove to yourself what you're capable of, you then use that as a frame of reference to other areas of life, like building a brand, or approaching someone at a bar, or just going to a networking event. You could do anything. In my opinion, that's what running a marathon did to me. So it's challenging, but you also have a choice. Like when the voice in your head starts to talk you out of it, oh, you're tired, you have nothing to prove, you can give up. You have a choice. You can lower the volume to that voice, and then you can start feeding yourself positive affirmation. So there's many tools and strategies that you could utilize to overcome the inevitable challenges of running a marathon.
Excellent. Excellent. So you're a born and raised New Yorker, right? So what does that mean to you, that New York groove, that vibe, and being a born hustler and being in the Big Apple? And how did being immersed in that environment shape you to be the juggernaut that you are today?
It's interesting because over the last couple of years, like I know a lot of people would associate me, because I guess I'm a rising thought leader in the space, and it's very obvious I'm from New York with the accent and so forth. But I didn't really think too much of it. But now recently, since you asked, I recently take great pride in being a New Yorker, born and raised, because New York is a tough place to live. It's survival of the fittest. It's not cheap to live here. There's a certain mentality and energy of people in this city. Everybody's going after it. But as I like to say, competition breeds success. And there's an old expression: if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. I think just said that, or was somebody, but whatever the case may be, but it's true. And like when I travel for speaking, or even on a vacation, whatever the case may be, it's nice to get away for a minute. But then, like, to me, everybody's like very relaxed, and that's cool for a minute. But then I end up missing the energy, and everybody's kind of in a hurry. So I will always have some residence in New York the rest of my life. Doesn't mean that I won't have places in other places and so forth. But there's just something different about the swagger of a New Yorker, in my opinion. And I'm proud of that. And I believe it to be true, that if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere.
100%. 100%, man. So you mentioned in one of our conversations a while back, or I heard you say this, that your dad actually had the Tony Robbins cassette back in the day, and I probably like maybe 30 years ago. So and he was a big reason that you made it to the starting line, I believe, of your first marathon. How is your pops today? How's he doing?
He's doing good. I spoke to him today. He was super energetic, as I said earlier, in regards to the home run derby. My dad is 87 years young. He's not a spring chicken. And he was diagnosed with cancer, and they found it after a stroke. And he'd always been healthy his whole life. He was one of those cats, like everybody thought he was 20 years younger. He would actually be embarrassed to say his age. I mean, he didn't even tell the kids, my brother and I, when we were growing up. But then he had a stroke, I would say out of nowhere, but he was still low 80s and so forth. And when they found that, the stroke, they did some more testing, and they found the lung cancer. And I'll never forget, the doctor was very pessimistic when he came back to give the diagnosis. And I was having a conversation on the paradigm shift last week with Mel Turner. We had a guest on who was battling cancer. She's a badass entrepreneur. And she said something that I really liked, and I can't take credit for it, but she said, you can approve of the diagnosis, but not the prognosis. In other words, the doctor came in and he was just very negative about my dad's outlook. And I remember him leaving and I said, Dad, that's one guy's opinion, but they don't take into consideration heart, spirit, and mindset. We got this one day at a time. And here he is 5 years later. And I was at his most recent result with the same doctor. And he came back with his most recent PET scan result. And the guy was, I can't believe it. I would have been happy if the tumors just stayed the same, but they actually shrunk a little. So my dad is battling. He's got a great reinforcement, I like to believe, with me and the family and so forth. And he's doing the best that he can. And thank you so much for asking.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And if I'm going to include a link in the show notes to American Cancer Society. Unfortunately, it's such an insidious disease that we all either know someone who's battling or we might have lost someone. So I'm definitely
public enemy number one, I would say. I think everybody in some capacity has been impacted by cancer.
Yep. And so that's great to hear. I'm glad he's doing well.
Thank you so much, Greg.
No, you got it, man. So you began studying NLP in terrific books like The Secret, The Power of Intention, back in college or thereabouts. And so is this when you first became interested in personal development? And was there one specific thing at that time that led you on the path you're on now, that led you to that discovery?
Yeah, so I stumbled upon personal development right after college when I got to Wall Street.
Okay.
And I was a fish out of water. There was a lot of people making a lot of money, and I didn't have any experience. And I wanted to get better, and I wanted to do well. And so I went to YouTube and I started typing in like motivational videos, inspirational stuff. And I ended up coming across Eric Thomas, E.T., the preacher, who's now my friend, and he's been on the show a couple times. And I somehow stumbled upon neuro-linguistic programming, NLP.
Right.
And basically, this is a technology that you can use to reprogram your mind.
Right.
In other words, how you look at the world is not actually based upon the actual world or reality. It's our frame of the world, what we perceive to be possible or limited. And you can actually adjust what's possible for you by removing limitations and cultivating confidence.
Right.
And when I stumbled upon this, it changed my whole life. I became more confident. I was able to model people that I held in high regard. I was able to be better at sales, to approach pretty girls at the bar, to build rapport, pay attention to the language, I said to myself, and I totally transformed myself. And so I became obsessed with personal development for 15 years, studying it. From there, I went to Kabbalah, to law of attraction, emotional intelligence, historic figures, and I would document it and document. I just didn't realize that it would end up becoming my career. I just thought it was something that I was really passionate about, and I used it to improve in different facets, such as Wall Street, running marathons, and relationships. And then when the pandemic happened and I got really quiet and I took time to get clarity and figure this stuff out, it occurred to me right then and there that personal development was much more important for me than just a passion. It was my purpose. It was actually my assignment. And I married that with my God-given abilities, because they were given to me, to communicate effectively. And I married the two. And that's when CLS was born.
There you go. Love it. So if someone is new to this exploration of personal development and they haven't been available in their lives before, how does someone become available, and then how do they stay on that frequency?
Yeah, what a great question. Becoming available means that you're open, right? So any limitations that you might have had based upon your parents or society or the news, you make a commitment to let those go and start fresh and be open to possibilities and opportunities. And one way to do that is, instead of focusing on what can go wrong and all the negativity out there, shift your mindset to focus on, well, what can go right? What happens if it works?
Right.
What are some positives? And I've coined myself to be delusionally optimistic. And you know what I am? I look for the positive in everything. I'm always thinking about how things can work. And for anyone that might be listening that struggles with like money stories and stuff like that, if you ever pass by something or you're into something, something as simple as, instead of saying, I can't afford that, change the language in your head to, how can I afford that? Okay. And now all of a sudden you begin to change the DNA, the dynamics, the frequency that you're tuned into, and you become a little bit more solution oriented, and you can change what you're available for. So being available is the most important thing, because, for example, I read The Secret, the book, years and years ago, but I wasn't really available for it. And as a result, I consumed it, but I didn't really apply it. But when I had the tumor in my foot a few years back, and I overcame that, and what happened is because I wasn't able to physically run, I started diving into The Secret once again. Same book, different season, except this time I was available. And when I consumed that content, I was able to then deploy it and really take it in and understand it. So if you want something to really work in life, you can't just hear it. You have to be available for it. In other words, you have to really buy in. So if you're not going to buy in, but yet you're going to read an inspirational book, you might just think it's like, woo-woo and whatever. But if you're available for it, if you buy into the principles and the strategies, that's all it takes to start shifting your vibration and really making positive changes in your life.
That's a great answer. And that's exactly what I was looking for. And I know that someone's going to hear that, and that's going to elevate them and help them. So yeah, thank you. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Love it. Love it. Let's see. What do we have here? So you said that one of your own personal superpowers is your self-belief or your self-confidence. Where did that come from? How critical is that for someone to have in their own everyday life? And is it possible for someone to learn or cultivate that attribute?
Not only is it possible, but that's the premise of the Reinvention Formula book. And the answer to your question, brother, yes. When I stumbled upon personal development, I thought that where I was and the confidence level that I had at that point, which was minimal, was an indication of how it would be forever. NLP specifically was kind of my gateway to personal development. It showed me that where you're at is not an indication of who you can become. And you can actually raise your self-worth and your self-belief. And I believe you'll never really get further in life than your own self-worth. So if you're not satisfied with where you are and you're not happy with the results that you're getting in life, it's an indication that that's what you believe to be possible for yourself. Because if you thought and played bigger, then you would figure other things out and you would try new things until you got it to work. And that's one of the reasons why I felt stuck for so long, is because I didn't believe abundance, wealth, the right career, love, all that stuff was possible for me. Up until the pandemic, when I realized I could choose a different story. That's when I started leaning in and raising my self-worth and realizing I've been successful at other things. Those skill sets are transferable. I can allocate that to entrepreneurship and CLS, and so to speak. So just to be very clear, you can absolutely raise your self-belief and your confidence, and you can increase your self-worth, and that will increase the results that you get in life.
Excellent. Excellent. I needed to hear that today. So you talk about these things and a whole lot more in your new book, as we can see on the screen behind you, The Reinvention Formula: How to Unlock a Bulletproof Mindset to Upgrade Your Life. And that's set to release next month on August the 15th. I know you're excited about that. So what was the book writing process like for you? What did you learn about yourself as you wrote it? And where can the audience pre-order this masterpiece?
It's interesting because when I set the intention for the book, when I started CLS, it was very methodical, and I put together a 10-lane highway. I didn't want to just be a coach or a speaker. I was very intentional. So I looked at it like 10 lanes: speaking, coaching, podcast, book deal, community, all the things. And then I reverse engineered it. And I like to say, marry the process, divorce the outcome. So I had the book deal on the whiteboard. For me personally, I wanted to sign with a major publisher. I didn't want to self-publish my first book. I just kind of thought of it like a movie coming out and it was backed by a big studio. And that doesn't mean that I'm right or self-publisher is wrong. That's just what felt good for me. And so I divorced from it. And then a mutual friend, or Uncle Ed Milet, had a tremendous success with Wiley, and they were kind of looking for their next Ed Milet, and there's been comparisons. And ironically, Wiley came to us, and just to be clear, I didn't have a manuscript. I didn't have a lit agent, which is very rare. I didn't have anything. They came to us. I renegotiated what turned out to be a record first-time author book deal. I wasn't afraid to lose the deal. It's no secret. And it just felt good. Right. And so now it was game time, but they had a stipulation. They had a tight turnaround. And so I remember going to the New York City Library, right when the deal got signed.
Yeah,
and
I remember that.
I wrote for a couple hours, and I came home and I thought I wrote half the book. And I converted it to like a word program so I could do a word count. And it was like maybe 1,500 words, 2,000 tops. I was like, oh my God, I did 50,000. This is going to be tougher than I thought. And so from there, I created a system, and I'll never forget it. December 2022, every single day, I woke up at 4 a.m., which is a little bit earlier than usual for me, pitch black out before the world. And I would write for about an hour, hour and a half. And it just started to flow. It turned out to be about 1,000, 1,500 words a day. And by the time that month was complete, the book was done. I could have wrote more, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
It just started to pour out and kind of write itself. It was beautiful. And the great news is this process proved that I could duplicate this in the future, if and when there should be another book. So that was my process for me. And what I learned is just like anything, plan your work and work your plan. And nothing is not attainable with the right strategy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let me talk to you about your faith for a second. So how important is your faith in God to you, and how has that built you into who you are today?
Yeah, so I grew up Jewish,
right?
But I wasn't super religious.
Okay.
And then a few years back, I really started to triple down on my relationship with God. And that's what's most important to me. And when I did that, simultaneously kind of started CLS. And there's been a lot of success. It's no secret. Mm-hmm. Probably not a coincidence.
No.
So for anyone listening out there, I never liked when someone would try to like put faith on someone, like, you know, form your own opinion. Right. But I would say this, I think we can all agree that there's something bigger than us. That's how we're here. Right. And whatever that is for you, the universe, God, whatever, Jesus, mm-hmm. Hanukkah, Harry, find something that you could sink your teeth into and buy into that. And it's the most rewarding and liberating thing that you can ever do. My relationship with God strengthens every single day. And I know a lot of the blessings, the manifestations are from him. Essentially, me and you are both manifestations, in my opinion, of him, of God.
Yep.
And so it's just so powerful and so beautiful. And it's something that I'm working on and I'm exploring. And it's been a beautiful journey. And I can't wait to see where it goes. But in a nutshell, I've really quadrupled down on my relationship with God specifically, as opposed to religion over the last few years.
Excellent. Excellent. So let me segue here for just a minute. And in my own faith, my own studies, I recently found a Bible verse from Book of Proverbs, chapter 15, verse 22. Without counsel, plans go wrong, but with many advisors, they succeed. You've mentioned the importance of having a mentor, and one of yours is the legend David Meltzer. So how important is it to not only have a mentor, but to be in alignment with the right mentor?
Yeah, you got to find somebody, right? Because we're not meant to do life alone. You got to be able to ask for help. That's one thing that I did very well in the beginning of CLS is I put my ego aside and realized I don't know what I don't know. And by getting in the rooms with people, just like you are with the CLS membership, with people that aren't necessarily better, but a little bit further ahead, it's contagious. It helps you think and play bigger. And for me, that was a big quantum shift. And I'm so glad that I did it. And for the rest of my life, I will have mentors in some capacity, because you should have the mentality that you can never stop learning, straight up.
Yep.
And I think it's important to have a mentor and a mentee. And then in regards to Dave specifically, Dave's a 55-year-old man. He's a lot more life experience than me. He's about 18 years older. And he's just somebody that I gravitated towards. I liked his style, and he's humble, and I just connected with him. So for me, that was the right fit. I also see this day and age, like it's become trendy to have a mentor, and people keep switching and so forth. I would encourage someone to find someone that you have in alignment and go really deep with them and really go on a journey and explore and go deep. And I think that's when the most meaningful change happens.
I agree 100%. 100%. So Craig, what gives you the most personal joy with the work that you do, whether that's being a personal development coach or the minding the gyms with your podcast guest, and what gives you the most personal joy with the work you do?
Seeing somebody like you whom I love and respect and know that they're here for something much bigger, go for it.
Right.
And start a podcast and put yourself out there and take uncomfortable action. I spent so long in a frequency where I knew I was here for something so much more. And look, my arm wasn't bit off by a shark. I wasn't shot in war, but my pain was my pain, brother. Mm-hmm. Everybody has emotional and spiritual pain at some point in their life. And for me, it's worse than any physical pain, straight up. And I was so miserable and depressed. And then I snapped out of it and I got into alignment and everything changed, not just my career. I got engaged. Everything, life has never been richer or better or more fun and fulfilling. And I want that for everybody. I believe that's my calling and my assignment is to showcase. And that's really the point of the reinvention formula. It's everything I know to be true up until this point. Right. And you like me or hate me, I know, hard to believe anyone would dislike me. I'm only kidding. But one thing that you couldn't deny is that I pivoted very successfully. And so I think that's really good because it showcases to everybody that might not be super fulfilled that you can start fresh. It's never too late. You're never too old. And you can pivot with great success and you can get into alignment. And that, my brother, is what lights me up the most.
Thank you. Thank you. I definitely received that. Thank you very much. No, my man, what a tantalizing and amazing conversation this has been. Let me ask you a couple more things and we will land.
But don't forget to tag Whiskey in this one because he played a nice role. He won't shut up tonight.
I'll give Whiskey a what do you call that? An acting credit?
Acting cameo.
Cameo. There you go.
It's raw. It's authentic.
Nice. Well, I will absolutely. I will give Whiskey a credit for that.
Yeah.
Man, what a tantalizing and amazing conversation this has been. Let me ask you a couple more things, and then we will land the plane, as you like to say. Mm-hmm. Let me ask you about the podcast and acknowledge you for a second. I want to encourage the listeners to encounter the brilliance and the greatness that is the CLS experience with Craig Siegel, because literally, and I'm living proof that Craig and every single one of his guests has changed the game that I play with their amazing conversations. And I would imagine, Craig, that the relationships you form, not to mention the elevation from their greatness and the priceless nuggets that they've dropped, have been phenomenal for you, namely, Jim Rome, Suzanne Summers, Brian Dawkins, Alicia Silverstone, and just dozens of others. So how have these conversations and relationships personally elevated you?
What a great question. For me, one of the coolest things that I get to do with CLS is have these podcasts that, first of all, I'm paid to do essentially, but I get to share unbelievable juggernauts with our audience and community so that they can benefit, but also selfishly, I get to learn so much from people that I've held in really high regard. Some people have been idols of mine growing up, or just somebody that I can learn from. These cats are obviously or have done something right. And so nothing makes me happier than having an unbelievable conversation with someone. I often form friendships with these cats and they share it, which is beautiful too. Mm-hmm. And the podcast platform, as you'll start to experience, is so great for so many reasons, because number one, it's a vehicle for your personal brand, gets people to listen to you and find out what you have going on. You meet great relationships because the podcast proves to be a vessel where you can connect with people that otherwise you might not have. And then just being able to converse with them and build a rapport and learn and have a great conversation. It's so much fun. And just like the introduction that you gave me, which I know you put so much effort into, I take great pride in building such a rapport with these guests. And one way I'm able to do that is to really do homework and find out stuff about them that's not so commercial. And it often impresses them and it disarms them. And It allows me to build up a huge rapport. And obviously you do that as well. So it's only beneficial, especially in 2023, to start and grow a podcast.
No, absolutely. I couldn't agree with that more. It's a great way to, to build your brand as you say, and as certainly as you've done. So 100%, your work and what you do is always going to be a key into who I continue to become, which I just think that's a huge part of our human existence, to keep elevating. So please let me acknowledge you for that. And it really is. It's who we become in the process.
100%. Yeah.
Excellent. So what's next for Craig Siegel? I mean, you got engaged not that long ago. Congratulations to both you and your lovely fiance Alessia on that. So there's a wedding down the road. And speaking of marriage, first and foremost, happy wife, happy life.
That's what I hear, brother. That's what I hear. So I'm going to take
True.
that advice to heart. And that's what I'm seeing too. So thank you so much for saying that. It's a really exciting time to be engaged. And, you know, as they say, like, we don't have so many responsibilities right now. So it's just me and her and the brand and all that. And I'm really enjoying it and trying to live as mindful and be as present as I can in the moments.
Excellent. Excellent. So how can our listeners support you, and where can they go to get more information?
Yeah, I would say anywhere on social media at Craig Siegel _CLS. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, CLS Experience. If you like inspirational free nuggets through text throughout the week, join our texting community. Just text 917-634-3796. Text the word Greg so I know that you heard it here. And then obviously anywhere you buy books, the Reinvention Formula, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Books a Million, anywhere. And if this episode comes out before it comes out, you could join our launch team and get bonuses and access to a virtual event and read the book before it comes out by going to reinventionformula.com and just submitting your confirmation number and just come say hello. I love to interact. Oftentimes people are like, whoa, I didn't think it was actually going to be you. I thought it was your team. To the best of my ability as we grow, I the best that I can to make it a human, personal experience to connect with everybody as I possibly can.
Excellent. So how else can I personally support you?
Just keep doing what you're doing, brother. Keep stepping into this, build the podcast out, lean into what sets your soul on fire, go for your dreams, think and play bigger. And I think maybe most importantly, just let's build a friendship. I love and respect you. You're a good friend of mine. You're not just a community member. I value you. I love doing life with you. Your personality is awesome. And I'm just excited to do life with you.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate you. I appreciate you very much, Manfred. And I received that. Thank you. Thank you. Well, the pleasure was all mine today, and I love and appreciate you very much, my brother. And you've made an enormous difference and impact in not only my life but countless others. And I'm eternally grateful to you for your work in the personal development space. And if this is your warm up, I can't wait for the main event. So your best is yet to come, and the world truly needs you. So thank you.
Thank you so much, brother. I received that, and I will make sure that you stand corrected. We are all just get warmed up.
There you go. There you go. Well, thank you very much to the juggernaut himself, Craig Siegel, for being my guest today. And an incredibly special thank you to the CLS staff, Alexandra, Kins, and especially Alessia, the future Mrs. S, for helping set this up today. So thank you, ladies, for your assistance today. Our call to action 100%. Again, if you want to upgrade your life, no matter how great it already is, go right now and pre-order Craig's new book, The Reinvention Formula, How to Unlock a Bulletproof Mindset to Upgrade Your Life. I promise that you will be elevated and inspired after reading it. There are a couple links in the show notes to Amazon and the publisher Wiley Books and the reinventionformula.com. So please follow those and place your order today. Again, I don't know if I said this before, but if you have the chance to interact and work with Craig on any level, as an author now and someone who has an accomplished podcast which has several million downloads, Craig has a tremendous proof of concept, which I can't stress enough, and he has my highest personal endorsement.
Thank you so much, brother.
No, thank you, man. Well, thank you again to everyone for listening to the Heroes and Icons podcast with your host, Greg Randolph. Have a great night. God bless, and we will see you next time. I can find oh, come on, stop with it.